I became the first woman vice president of the newspaper. Not the first Hispanic, the first woman.
The first woman to become vice president of the San Antonio Express-News did not expect a career in media.
I studied languages. My goal was to work for the United Nations as an interpreter. But coming from a very traditional Mexican family, my father wouldn't let me go to New York. So I said, oh, what am I going to do now? With 4 years of college, I could speak 3 languages at the time.
After graduating from Our Lady of the Lake University in 1965, Veronica Salazar took her language skills to work as an interpreter and translator at the Chamber of Commerce.
Then the newspaper was looking for a bilingual executive secretary, someone that could also write. So right after Hemisphere, the editor of the Express News approached me about a job at the newspaper.
With no experience in the media world, Salazar would become a trailblazer. It began when she translated stories from one of the community newspapers titled The West Side Sun.
The morning newspaper used to have a news digest every morning in Spanish that I would translate. And I approached him one day that how come everything in the newspaper on page 1 about Hispanics was negative. This was back in 1973.
Concerned, Salazar asked the editor if he could assign a reporter to do a monthly article that would highlight the good things done by the Hispanic community.
There was this man on the west side that sold tortillas for 25 years, and he educated all his kids. And out of those kids, there were 5 doctors in the family. Nobody knew about that. I wanted to tell the stories. So he sort of said, well, let me think about it. So a week later, he came back to me and he says, you write the stories.
It was another challenge Salazar would face, but it was a challenge she was willing to take on.
It was important that the kids had role models. It was important for them to know that there was nothing wrong with delivering newspapers, with shining shoes, with working after school. As long as you had a goal, an aspiration that you would become somebody.
The column she wrote, Dedication Rewarded, not only gave children role models to look up to, but allowed the general public to see members of the Hispanic community showcased in a positive light.
It ran every Sunday for 17 years.
Salazar says the Dedication Rewarded column has a special place in her heart because that is how she met her husband, Ruben Escobedo.
Somebody recommended him for the series. And they said, here's a young man that was raised at the courts, comes from very humble beginnings, and now he's a CPA. He just got back from Price Waterhouse, where he worked in New York for 5 years, and has opened his own CPA firm. So I went to interview him, and now it's history.
Veronica Salazar and Ruben Escobedo became a power couple, taking interest in several organizations and donating to numerous charities.
Ruben and I have in giving back to the community really goes back to the way I was raised. We were raised. My parents taught me to love people and use things, not use people and love things. My mother always brought in children that were migrant students in my hometown, and we had 2 or 3 spending the week with us, sleeping at our home so they could have an opportunity to go to school.
The couple even donated $1.1 million to Our Lady of the Lake University for a revamped media center that was named in Salazar's honor.
It was my turn to pay back to the nuns, to the CDPs who did so much for us when we were in school here.
Salazar says she and her husband hope to set an example for their children, grandchildren, and all the students who would walk through the doors of the Veronica Salazar Media Center.
Our hope for the Veronica Salazar Media Center is to prepare the best communicators that we can. I grew up in the world of media, and even though I didn't train to be in media, but if I didn't train and I accomplished something, can you imagine training someone to really become a professional communicator?